change, be the change now.
Hello, I am Ari Obenson, Secretary General of JCI, and I'm welcoming you to this session on the orientation for I Am Africa. But before we go on to talk about the important mission that we have ahead of us, I will invite you to go online and download the reflection worksheets. We'll use these worksheets as we go along through this session, and be sure to fill each one of them. Once more, welcome to this important session, the I Am Africa orientation. Together, we will find answers towards building a vibrant Africa. This is Africa, a beautiful continent made up of 1.2 billion people. This is Africa, a land of diversity. This is Africa, the coastline and the mountains, the old and the new. This is Africa, a place diverse in terms of development, the rich and the poor, the old and the new. This is Africa, from the rich flora to the sandy deserts, from the not so good headlines to a rich continent diverse in culture. Just as these photos represent Africa, so do each one of the people shown here. They are happy, they are sad. They're lively, they're reserved. The young, the old, the children, the future. Each one of these individuals represent the diverse faces of Africa. They are Africa, the continent on which you are. As diverse as they come, so too does the opportunity and the potential of this continent, Africa. For us to take advantage of this diversity, this beauty, the resources, we have to take action together, and we must act now. We are here because of your responsibility to your community, your responsibility to your country, and your responsibility to this great continent, Africa. You may not realize this, but at the end of this session, you will realize that you have the responsibility for Africa. Before we proceed, we're going to begin by asking ourselves some questions. These questions will enable us to dive deeper into understanding the current situation in Africa. So let's begin with our first question. And our first question is about what you know. Do you know how many people in sub-Saharan Africa go every day without power? Take a moment to reflect on this. Well, every day, 625 million people go without power in sub-Saharan Africa. Think about this. Now let's move on to our second question, which I'll invite you to fill in the blank with me. Do you know how many million young people enter the job market each year? And how many of these young people actually secure a job? So fill in the blanks with me. Million youth enter the job market each year across the continent, while only million young people secure formal jobs. 12 million young people are due to enter the job market as we speak this year. And unfortunately, only 3 million of these young people are going to secure jobs. What happens to 9 million of them? Think about this. Let's move on to another question. And I hope that you can provide an answer to this one. You know, you live in extreme poverty if you live below $2 a day. Do you know what percentage of the world's extreme poor live in Africa? Think about it and I'll share with you the answer. Over 50% of the world's population that lives below $2 a day lives in Africa. Daunting. Let's go on to our next question. Do you know what percentage of the continent's GDP is lost because of corruption each year? And what number of people on the continent paid bribe in the last year? Notice 25% of the continent's GDP, over $140 million, is drained out of the continent by way of corruption. And last year, in 2017 alone, 75 million Africans said they paid bribe. This is Africa. This is the continent that we live in. This is the current situation of our continent. After looking at all the questions that we just went through, the Africa that we currently face is one with corruption, unemployment, poverty, and lack of access to important resources. I ask you, is this the Africa that you want? So what is the Africa that you want? Take a moment and reflect using the worksheets that you have on the Africa that you want. In responding to the question of the Africa that you want, you may have written that you want a peaceful Africa. You want an Africa without corruption, an Africa where every child that is born has access to good quality education, an Africa where every child that gets into every youth that gets into the workforce can get a job. That is the Africa that you want. But I have a question for you. Whose responsibility is it to have this Africa that you want? Of all the things that you dream of Africa, whose responsibility is it? And who do you think is going to make this happen? Take a moment, using your worksheet, reflect on this. Welcome back. We spoke about the Africa that we want. And the Africa that I hope you want, that we all want, is an Africa that is peaceful, that is prosperous, an Africa that has opportunities for every young person. But we have to go on to ask ourselves even more questions. We asked ourselves, as we ended the last session, whose responsibility is it to create the Africa that we want? I know whose responsibility it is. It is my responsibility. It is your responsibility. It is the responsibility of each one of us, all Africans, to ensure that we build the Africa that we want. It's great responsibility. So what opportunities exist for Africa to become a peaceful and prosperous continent for all of us? Take a moment to reflect on your worksheets, on your answers to this. Whilst you do that, I'll reflect on a few of them. These are just a few of some of the opportunities that I can reflect on, and the opportunity that exists for us to have a prosperous continent in Africa. And I'm sure that you've taken note of them, but there's one really important resource that I believe is the biggest opportunity that we have. Africa's young people. 65% of the 1.2 billion people on the African continent are young people. This is the biggest opportunity that we have to build a prosperous continent in Africa. Now, we've looked at the opportunities that exist. Let's talk a bit about the responsibility. What is your responsibility as a citizen of your community, your country, and of Africa? Reflect on that responsibility. What do you think is your responsibility as a citizen?
Be the change now.
As you reflect, some of you, or you may have written that your responsibility as a citizen is getting a job, paying your taxes, being part of your community. But is that all about your responsibility? Don't you owe a responsibility to your brothers, your sisters, your neighbors, everybody that lives in your community? And what exactly is that responsibility? Note that down on your reflection sheet. Well, because we are part of a community, there is something which we call social responsibility. And social responsibility actually goes beyond your legal responsibility. I know you may have written down you pay your taxes, but it doesn't suffice for you to pay your taxes. It doesn't just suffice for you to register and vote in the election. Social responsibility is what we owe to each other that goes beyond our legal responsibility. In fact, it is said that social responsibility is the responsibility that you have when no one is watching. Your responsibility to act positively. Your responsibility to refrain from acting negatively. This is really important, that we have a responsibility towards one another, to act positively towards one another, towards our community. Even more important, that we have a responsibility to refrain from acting negatively. So let's think about this in terms of corruption. What responsibility do you have to act positively, doing the right thing? And what responsibility do you have to refrain from acting negatively, paying the bribe? So that's social responsibility, and that's the responsibility that we all have towards building a successful and prosperous Africa. Now, I have another question for you. Have you ever had an idea of how you solve a problem in your community? So every day as we go about our business in our communities, we obviously find something that is wrong. Do we just complain about it and wait for somebody else to solve it? Or we think about it and have a solution in our minds? Do we take action or do we fail to take action? Think about this in terms of your social responsibility, and maybe even write down one of those problems that you've identified, but you've never taken action on. Now try to think with us, think with me. What is it that kept you from fulfilling your social responsibility? Your responsibility to act positively, or your responsibility to refrain from acting negatively?
Be the change now.
So often we see challenges in our communities. And the reason we don't take action is because we see hurdles, obstacles in our way from overcoming those challenges. But what if we could think differently? What if we saw Africa's challenges as a huge opportunity? And I see this all the time as I travel across the continent, that for every piece of paper that I see by the side of the road, I know it's an opportunity. For every number of young people I see hanging at the corner of the streets, unemployed, and thinking about what they will have for a meal tomorrow, is an opportunity. For every traffic jam, every leaking roof on a house is an opportunity. A continent full of opportunities. But we must change our perspective and look at those challenges every day as an opportunity. And here's a little example of how we can change the way that we think, how we can overcome all the hurdles that we face. And I need you to pay close attention to this little exercise. Come along with me. Looking at this flip chart, what do you see on this flip chart? Typically, when I do this exercise, of course, everybody sees the dot. You can see it. Everybody sees the dot. And when I ask people what they see, yeah, it's a dot. And sometimes I would do a circle around the dot. And typically people would say, I see a dot in the middle of a circle. Some would say, I see a target. And sometimes I even get more creative and add another circle, and it looks like a target. Some people would say, I see a ring around a dot. But hardly do many people see the white space. All of this space around. This is the opportunity that abounds. Too often in Africa, we see the problem and fail to see all of this white space around here, which is the opportunity. The opportunity for us to overcome all the obstacles. It is in changing our mindset that we're going to be able to create the opportunities for a brilliant Africa. We worry too much about the process, about why and how, that we fail to see what the expected outcome is, the opportunity. If we can paint in our mind's eye the picture of that Africa that is prosperous, and we walk towards that picture, we will be able to overcome all the obstacles. That's what this exercise reveals. And I hope that this changes your mindset as well. Change is inevitable if we focus on the opportunity. If we can change our mindset and the mindset of our peers, our brothers and sisters, and everybody across the continent can start seeing the opportunity that lies beyond the everyday challenges that we see on the African continent, we could actually create positive change in Africa. And we can do this with this opportunity that I bring to you today. The opportunity lies in a simple idea. I am Africa. A simple idea that each one of us has the responsibility to build Africa. That's the opportunity. "50 years ago, the founders of most of the African countries fought for the independence of our countries. They had dreams, big dreams. They dreamed of an Africa that was free and prosperous, an Africa that was peaceful, where every child that was born had access to clean, potable water, access to education, an Africa in which there was justice and equal opportunities for everyone. 50 years later, those dreams seem to be eluding us. But our forefathers played their part. They gave us the opportunity to belong to the countries that we are so proud of belonging today. They gave us our independence. And now, it's our time. It's your time to play your part. And what would your part be? I Am Africa is the opportunity for you to play your part. Let me take a moment to talk to you about this opportunity. Let me take a moment to talk to you about I Am Africa, how we can inspire a vibrant Africa. We believe that this campaign can ignite change across this continent if we can mobilize 1.2 billion citizens to accept and assume responsibility for the ownership of Africa's future. If each one of us accepts and assumes responsibility to build a sustainable future for Africa, we can actually transform it. But for that to happen, we need the citizens of Africa to stand up and declare, I am Africa. Take ownership by making this declaration that I am Africa. And we're going to create ways in which you can join the campaign, that each one of you can contribute to its success. Just as you see, some people have already been doing. And you, by participating today in this session, are also taking your first step towards committing or declaring I am Africa. And you can do this with the props and tools that are available for you. For example, you can join the movement by doing one of three things. The first one begins with declaring I am Africa. And we have props that you can download, that you can take a picture of yourself accepting and assuming responsibility for Africa by saying, I am Africa. The next thing that you have to do is take responsibility for Africa. Beyond just declaring that you are Africa, what about you sharing this responsibility with other people? And thirdly, you can actually take action. Beyond just thinking about what solutions exist, what can you do? So, as a reminder, first, declare, I am Africa, using one of these. Secondly, and I'm going to do this, go to our website. Very simple steps for you to join the campaign and commit to I Am Africa. And thirdly, Using the technology, the power that lies in your hands that you all carry in your pockets today, you can share your commitment with 5 friends on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or one of the platforms that exist. And I'm going to do that myself by sharing my commitment with a few friends that I have. So I'll take a photo, a selfie of myself doing this, and I hope that you can also do this. There we go. I am Africa. You share this with your friends and family. Finally, join the movement. Share this on Facebook. Follow us on our Twitter feed as well as on the website. This is it. This is how we change Africa. This is how you become the biggest opportunity that Africa has by participating in its transformation. But before we go, I have one last challenge for you. Let me end with a challenge for you. Our elders in Africa say, the future belongs to those who rise early. So I challenge you to rise up. I challenge you to be Africa. I challenge you to accept and assume responsibility for the development of Africa. Unless you, each one of us, can say that we are Africa, that we are responsible for Africa's failures and successes, can there be change in Africa? So whatever you're doing, wherever you're watching this, I need you to join me in taking this challenge. I need you to rise up and say, I am Africa. I am responsible for its successes and its failures. I am Africa. I accept and assume responsibility for the future of Africa. Say it loud so that your friends and neighbors and colleagues can hear this. I challenge you to challenge them as well to take this challenge, accepting the challenge to be Africa. If after this session we go back to business as usual, we would have wasted our time going through this orientation. But if at the end of this orientation, you leave here and make it your commitment to inspire and educate and engage other young people, your friends, your neighbors, your family members, then we would be on a path to transforming and creating a dynamic Africa. Say it with me, I am Africa. Jambo, Saboina, Dumela, Nagadef, Mbolo, Bonjour, hello. My name is Are Obenson. I'm your brother, and I hope that this message gets across to all our brothers and sisters across the diverse continent of Africa. I am Africa. You are Africa. We all are Africa. And the Africa that we want is the one that our parents always dreamt of, that those who fought for our independence always dreamt of, an Africa that was vibrant, prosperous, that provides opportunity for every child that is born to have good quality education, access to drinking water, justice and prosperity. That's the Africa that I want. That's the Africa that you want. Together we can work towards making this dream a reality. Join the campaign. I am Africa.